Coach McGuire, great to have you back on BYU Sports Nation as part of the Big 12 Media Day hoopla. And we've been speaking naturally with all the coaches about the expansion from 10 teams to 14 teams. Goodbye, Oklahoma and Texas. Oh, here come 4 new ones. Now it's 16. What's it like as you look back on 2 years ago to what this conference was to now a new revamped 16-team conference?
Well, it's exciting. I mean, I thought you brought in 4 really quality teams last year. Man, I'll tell you, going to Provo and playing there, it's become one of my favorite places, even though we lost the game and y'all kicked our tails. But, I mean, just what an incredible environment. I mean, that's what college football, and I think whenever y'all come to Texas Tech, you're going to get the same feeling that that's a college town and such a great atmosphere. But, you know, it's exciting because you're adding some really good teams. I mean, Utah has been good for a long time. They're a very physical team. You're adding an extremely explosive offense whenever it comes to Arizona. You know, I don't know as much about Arizona State, but they've got to come to Lubbock. And then I've known Dion for a long time, and so I'm excited that Colorado's back in the Big 12. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's one of these conferences. I mean, I'm telling you, man, and you know, Kalani and I have talked about it before. Like every single week, you better strap it up because you're playing a good football team every single week.
You know, and it's interesting when you have a conference that has 16 teams, you're just not going to be able to play everybody. And BYU and Texas Tech don't play each other this year. But how do you feel about that the conference has expanded to the point where, you know, there's going to be some years where you're not able to play certain teams? How does that change things?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because, well, just by rule, you're going to have to really keep a look on what the tiebreakers are, you know, because – I mean, it didn't come into effect last year, but at some point it's going to come into effect.
Yeah, so it will.
You're going to have to really look at that. It's tough sometimes. I mean, you know, whenever you wish that us having the opportunity to come to Provo, wish y'all had the opportunity to come to Lubbock, you know, off of that game. And then there's certain probably no doubt BYU and Utah playing every single year is a good matchup of a rivalry. Us playing Oklahoma State every single year, we're very similar, is probably really good. But, you know, it's going to be where you're playing, you know, the teams that are on your schedule, and you got to just go out and play and take care of business. It's going to be a lot of fun, though. It's an interesting conference, man. You've got just so many different storylines that are going to be interesting to follow and fun to follow the entire year.
How do you feel like your football team is different this year compared to where your squad was 1 year ago?
Depth. The biggest by far, year 1, year 2, year 3, the depth that we have on our roster. We were deeper last year in some areas, but not where we're at this year. But like year 1, my 2 starting defensive tackles played more snaps than anybody else in the country by 200-plus snaps.
Whoa.
I mean, they were playing 675 snaps and 700 snaps in the defensive line. So we had 3 guys that could play in the defensive line. Got really lucky because we stayed healthy. This year we have 7 interior defensive linemen that we feel like can play in the game. And so just the depth overall on the roster is going to make a huge difference, you know, where it comes on Saturdays.
Let's stay on the defensive side. Lots of new faces. How do you bring all these players together when you have so many new faces and trying to implement everybody and get everybody on the same page? How do you do that as we get closer and closer to the season?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, you know, I've heard different people talk about it, and when we were young, we were always like, man, why does mom and dad keep repeating themselves? Like, why do they say this? And like after the 100th time you've heard it, you've actually heard it for the first time. And so that's how we've got to build the culture. You know, you have to find different ways of saying the same thing to where the old guys are getting it and understanding where it's coming from, but the new guys, because at the end of the day, who you are at your core, everybody has to buy into that if you're going to win at a high level. And so that's been from the winter conditioning all the way to where we are right now with the summer, is just continuing to find ways to say the same thing but maybe saying it in a different way and finding different things where they go, oh, now I know what he's talking about. And it's just one of those deals that you got to get them to buy in. It helps. I brought 5 captains. I've never been around a stronger group of men than these 5 guys, of holding each other, holding me, and holding their teammates accountable, because they're going to call me out on my stuff too if I'm not what I say I am or what I'm trying to be.
Well, that core and those captains, they witnessed a nice turnaround during the back half of last season. Then you ended up winning a bowl game. There were some real frustrations early on, and you went through some brutal injuries too. I mean, just like, especially at the quarterback position. So those guys having gone through that, what's the next step for this core and this group following a 7-6 season?
I think the big part, if you look at year 1 and year 2, we were 3-3. We got to start out on the right note. We need to start out with some momentum. When you look at, we've got a good home schedule. 5 out of our first 7 games are at home, so we have the opportunity to get started on the right note. And then we have to continue to do what we do in November. We're 8-2 in our first 2 years in November. If you're going to be playing in the conference championship, you got to play meaningful games in November, so you've got to have a tough football team in November. And so we've got to continue that. I don't want to be playing in November to get bowl eligible. I want to be playing in November to be talking about getting into the Big 12 championship. You got to start off by starting off fast. We can't sit here and think we're going to be where we want to be and be 3-3 after the first 6 games.
As the season progressed last year, and looking at it from the BYU perspective, week after week after week, the BYU defense just kept facing this stud running back after stud running back. In man alive, do you have a great one in Tahj Brooks? What a luxury to have a player like that, right?
Yeah, I call him my security blanket. Some people call him a whoopee, whatever you want to call it, whenever you're growing up. But it's really one of those deals, like whenever things are going crazy, when there is chaos, when everything is just he can settle it down. He's everybody asks, what's he like? He's the best teammate. I mean, he is an incredible teammate. He loves that locker room. He loves the players. He understands how to be a mentor. We've got 2 young running backs that he is really mentoring right now that are going to be special. And he's got the confidence to pour into them and not think they're taking any of his snaps away. And then he's a complete back. He's a guy that's very physical. He catches the ball well out of the backfield, does a great job in pass pro. I'm just glad that he decided to come back, and it's one of those deals of if you go back to the BYU Texas Tech game, if we could have actually handed it off to him instead of dropping it on the ground,
right?
It might have been a little bit different, or maybe it's a little bit different in the fourth quarter. But it's just one of those deals. He's a luxury to have, and what a great person.
Maybe you just answered my question, but statistically speaking, what's one area that you feel like you have shored up that you will be better in this year when you go back and look at the stats after each game?
I think we're going to be able to get to the quarterback better. That's something that we did not do very well last year. I mean, it's one of those deals. You got to win games, you got to protect your quarterback, and you got to hit the other guys. I think we're going to have a chance to do that. And then what we have to do, there's no ands, ifs, or buts. I've had to play 3 quarterbacks year 1, and I've had to play 3 quarterbacks year 2. We have to protect the quarterback. That's with the play call. That's with the offensive line, tight ends and running backs. But it's also with Barron understanding that he doesn't have to extend every play, and every play is not a touchdown. He's going to have to throw the ball away. He's going to have to get down. And, if it's to where he's got to get an extra yards versus his health, unless it's the last play of the game, then we got to take it versus his health versus trying to get that extra yard.
The conference was very proactive, knowing that Texas and Oklahoma were going to go on their way out. And how do you feel the conference has taken control of the situation, knowing that they were going to lose 2 programs like that?
Yeah, Yormark is the best commissioner in the country. I absolutely love him because how aggressive he is, but also how aggressive he has to be. Like, it's one of the deals that you can say, well, I think the SEC's commissioner is phenomenal, but does he have an easier job than Commissioner Yormark does? And what I think Commissioner Yormark's done is been very aggressive to bring in really good programs. I told y'all this last year. I think BYU, the logo, the brand, carries a lot of weight in this country. It does. Y'all travel well, and you're really good in every sport that you play. When you add a Utah who has beat people up, you go back 2 years ago where a team that thought was going to play in the national championship had a Heisman Trophy winner. Utah made them quit twice, not once but twice. And so I think when you're adding teams like that, you might not think you have the same blue blood, but at some point people are going to understand how the quality of this conference in every sport, especially in football. I think it's really important that we now back him up by the way we play as schools, and it starts in non-conference, of us doing really well in non-conference as a conference. And I think that's really important.
I asked Sonny Dykes the same question, but with the release of EA College Football 25, they need to have coaches' ratings.
Man, or at least have us in there, man. I mean,
right.
Could you see this jacket?
That's what I was just going to say.
The jacket is
do you want
legit.
to be able to, like, modify your outfit so you can run out there with that?
No doubt.
That would look awesome.
I'd go throwback Trezor or, some of the stuff like that. I mean, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, let's stylize the coaches a little bit, huh?
It's
not just about the players.
No doubt.
Oh, Coach, it's been great to talk to you. We appreciate your energy and your enthusiasm. We're excited to watch Texas Tech this year.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Coach.